Hey, I'm Josh from Vacuums R Us in Colorado, and today we have a Bissell Big Green Shampooer here. It's in for the condition of does not pick up. I'm going to run you through some troubleshooting steps, some common things that can go wrong with it, and then we're going to get down to the repair, because I already have diagnosed this machine. It does need an actual repair. The internal lower hose is ripped. That'll be towards the end of the video. I'm going to walk you through some of the other troubleshooting steps first, but first, this disclaimer.
All right, before we start this repair, disclaimer time. This video is for informational purposes only. These repairs should only be done by factory authorized technicians in vacuum stores. If something goes wrong here, I am not responsible for any issues that might arise. If the vacuum becomes sentient and eats your cat, not our problem. Seriously though, watch the entire video. A lot of these repairs are very difficult. Make sure you're confident in performing this repair before you start, because the last thing in the world you want to do is take this machine apart and then bring it into a repair shop because you couldn't complete the repair. Many repair shops, like ours, will not accept machines once they've been messed around with. So make sure you can do this before you start, because you're in it to win it.
Okay, so now the disclaimer's out of the way. This is comparatively a relatively easy repair. They're all Phillips head screws. There's not that many different screw sizes, and we're not going to get into electronics. So as the video said, watch the whole thing, make sure that you can do it, because you don't want to bring this in pieces to your local dealer, because they will laugh at you. So we're going to test, we're going to check a couple things. So first of all, I want to be clear, the condition here is does not pick up. I don't know why this is, but 50% of people who bring in carpet shampooers say, well, it doesn't pick up. And we say, okay, well, is it spraying? And they go, no, it's not spraying. If it's not spraying, it's not going to pick up because there's nothing to pick up. And that's a totally different issue. Look at our other videos for that. If your machine is not putting down fluid to begin with, that's a different issue. But if it is putting down fluid, your carpet's wet and it's not picking up, that's what this video is for. Okay, so we're essentially going to follow the air channel and see if there's potential clogs or see what the potential issue might be. So I've got it plugged in. I'm going to take off the dirty water tank. And the motor is in here. Our suction's going to come out here. You've got our little red grill up here. I'm going to turn the machine on. And I can feel that I have suction coming out of here. If you do not have suction coming out of here, you've got, or very low suction, it's just barely moving air right there. The issue most likely is that your motor has been moved. There's a gasket underneath the motor, a large gasket. The issue is likely that motor has been moved and that gasket is disheveled and all of the air is leaking out, so it can't create suction. If you want to get into that repair, we have a motor replacement video that you can watch. That shows you how to remove and replace a motor. You're not going to be replacing your motor, but you'll need to know how to pull the motor out and then put it back in properly in the gasket. And that will solve that issue for you. But we have suction here, so we're going to go on to the next step. We're going to put our can back on. And there's a couple different ways you can test this. So if you have a hose for this machine, you can put the hose in right here. And then you can feel the end of the hose and see if you have suction on the end of the hose. Now note that it's kind of hard to feel suction on the end of the hose. Most of these Bissell shampooers have an attachment that's screwed in and it permanently attached to the end of the hose, and it's got a slit that all of the suction kind of disperses over that, and it's kind of hard to feel it, but you can feel it. So you can do that. You can plug the hose in, see if you have suction there. The other thing you can do if you do not have a hose, or if you don't want to do that, is I'm going to remove the dirty water tank. And on the bottom of the dirty water tank right here, you can see the inlet. It comes up here and then it goes into the dirty water tank right here. I'm just going to take a piece of duct tape and I'm going to clog it right there. And the reason I'm going to do this, when you put the hose in the machine, what it does is when you turn it, it's kind of got a baffle that diverts the airflow from here. It no longer comes through here and it goes through the hose. We don't have the hose, so what we're going to do is we're going to tape that shut. We're going to open this. We're going to turn it back on. We're going to see if we have suction right here. So I can feel I have suction there. I'm going to remove the tape. If at this juncture you do not have suction there, and you do have suction up here, the issue is in your tank. There is some kind of a leak somewhere in this tank that's allowing the air to come out. Now what you can do is you can put it on and you can turn the machine on and you can kind of feel around it to see if you've got a leak somewhere. One of the most common places is there's a gasket around here. If that's damaged or missing at all, you'll have a suction leak out of there and you're not going to get any airflow. There's a gasket right up here too. So you can kind of turn it on. If you use incredibly hot water regularly, you can kind of melt and distort this tank, which will cause the lid not to seat properly and you get a suction leak there. That is a relatively unusual problem to have, but it can. So we've got suction up here, so our tank is good, we've got suction here, our motor is seated, and that leaves us to this section here. So at this point, there's potential that you do have a clog down here. Again, it's pretty unusual, but if you have a lot of pet hair and you have a crappy vacuum, which most people do, that is not picking up pet hair, what happens when you use your shampooer is you get your carpet wet, you're probably using soap, and that soap causes the hair to loosen and go into the carpet shampooer, and it can clog the carpet shampooer. So what you can do is you should be able to lift it, and I'm looking down here and I can see daylight down here. If you cannot see daylight, you have a clog in here, and that's your issue. Now there's a couple ways you can get it out. You can take a garden hose, and so when you're cleaning, the debris is going up this way, right? So what you can do is you can take a garden hose and you can put it in there and kind of try to spray it out that way, because if it clogged this way, the idea is kind of reverse it. And so you can kind of put a garden hose in there and spray it out. Do not, absolutely do not use a clothes hanger. So there's a plastic hose in here, which we're going to replace because it's damaged. There's a plastic hose in here, and if that hose is not damaged and you use a clothes hanger, you will probably damage that hose. So don't do that. There are plastic drain unclog tools. They're for getting like hairballs out of drains, and they're plastic and they're relatively safe. That's something you can put down there. And there are also specific tools specifically for unclogging shampooer nozzles. And if we have that available, I'll have a link to that in the video below. If you do find you have a clog here and you're having a hard time getting it out, that tool is really handy. So that is not the issue though. I can see daylight all the way down through. Now in this particular machine, I can kind of see, if I look down there, that this clear hose that's connecting this to the plate down here, I can kind of actually see that the clear hose is unseated, and I can see that that's the issue. Many times you can't. You really can't see what's going on down there. But at this point, if you verified you have suction here, you have suction on your can, and you can see daylight here, and you can see that you don't have a clog, the only remaining thing is this hose, and that's the repair we're going to do now. I will link to it below. It is this hose. This is the piece that we're going to replace. I'll put it in the video description or whatever below. So if you need the hose, you can get it. So I'm going to take the water tank off. All right, and so now we have 6 screws down here that are shorter. All right, so I have these 6 screws loose. I'm going to kind of lean that forward. Okay, so this is the part that we are going to be replacing. I could see that this had come undone. It's basically glued in there, but it gets ratty. This is actually one of our loaner machines. We use these as rentals, so this gets a lot of use, and it gets wet and dries and wet and dries, and this gets damaged over time. So I'm going to take these 4 screws out up here. All right, and I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to leave those screws in there. They are smaller than any of the ones we've used so far, and they're also plastic screws, whereas the other ones we used were machine screws. These are plastic screws, but I'm going to leave them in there so we don't get them confused. And now you can really see the damage where this has come undone. So we're going to get 4 more screws, 1, 2, 3, 4. These are also short plastic screws. All right, and so this is just going to pop right off, and these parts come together. It's attached when you get the new part. All right, so now that we've got the old hose out, we've got the new hose here. So there is a gasket. This gasket is on the old hose. You got to pull this gasket out and then reinstall it on the new hose. Oddly, the hose doesn't come with this gasket. And it can go any way you want, but you want to put the gasket on before you put it back together again, otherwise you have to take the whole thing apart. So this can only go in one way. Everything is set to line up. If you want to be super thorough, you could put some silicone in there if you're worried about it. I'm not. These things have such high airflow, a 2% loss doesn't worry me. I'm going to put the screws back in. They're all the same size. All right, 4 screws, all the same size here. All right, now we're going to snap this back on the front. There's a ridge here that will kind of go right in there. All right, and again, large screws on top. There's 2 large screws that go up here. And then all of the bottom screws are all the same size. They're all machine screws, and they're shorter. All right, that is that. Hose is fully replaced, suction is restored, and this thing is ready to go back into production. This is actually one of our rental machines. Anybody who buys vacuums here gets a lifetime carpet shampooer rental. So these puppies, they get some work. They get some work. So we're back to production. Hopefully that was helpful. If you're having other types of issues with these machines, I believe at this point, I think we've done a repair video on just about every repair that you can do with these. So just go to our YouTube page and search it up, and you'll probably find what you're looking for.